We're now into our 4th week of lockdown, and later on today the government will be announcing whether they're going to extend it for the next few weeks. I wonder what your hopes and fears are as you wait for that announcement. A few days ago I was out walking the dog, and at one point I crossed over a road and came fairly near to someone, still 2 metres or 6 foot away, but as I came close to her she flinched. She threw up her hands in horror, ran a few steps, and then for the next 50 metres she was turning and looking back over her shoulder to make sure that I was nowhere nearby. It was a really unpleasant experience to be in a world where we're suspicious of one another and fearful of one another, where we actively cross over the road to get away from other people. To me, it feels really wrong. As I had that experience in mind, I remembered some verses from John's Gospel that come shortly after the resurrection, and I wanted to read them to you. First of all, we're told on the evening of the first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them. He said, "Peace be with you." And with that, he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit." Then a few verses later, we're told that Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Those verses stood out to me because 3 things happen in there that we're currently not allowed to do. Thomas says he wants to see Jesus and he wants to touch Jesus. And then, of course, Jesus appears to his friends, sees that they are fearful, and so to give them his peace, he breathes on them. Seeing, touching, breathing on others, 3 things that we have been told not to do as part of social distancing. And I know that many of us are beginning to find that really hard. We are missing seeing others, whether it's work colleagues or friends, people at the school gate, or just the people that we meet as part of our daily encounters. I know that there are people who live alone who have not been touched or touched others for the past 4 weeks, and that is very difficult. And many of us are just missing intimacy, the idea of being close to others that we know and care about, particularly when we want to comfort them if they are fearful. Many of us are finding it very hard coping with the realities of this lockdown. As I was thinking about those verses from John's Gospel, I was reflecting that many people assume that faith is something that is purely spiritual, something that's just in the mind. And yet what those verses tell us is that faith is also intensely physical. Thomas wants to see Jesus, and Thomas wants to touch Jesus. Only then will he believe. And then when Jesus sees that his disciples are fearful and anxious, he breathes on them to impart his peace. He does something that is physically intimate in order to show that he is with them and close to them. It's interesting for us to reflect on our faith as well, because I think the way that we express our faith is also physical. Think about what we do as church. We meet together every Sunday. We come, we sit, we stand together, we share coffee together. We don't all sit in our individual homes streaming services by ourselves. We come together. Halfway through the service, we share the peace where we shake the hand of the person next to us, or if we know them well, we give them a hug. At the end of the service, we share communion, bread and wine. We eat together. And in fact, we even do something as intimate as sharing the same cup. Physicality is important. Faith is embodied. We express faith through our bodies, and we experience grace, God's goodness and love, through our bodies. So I think many of us are finding it hard to be physically distanced from others, but we are also finding it hard that our faith is impacted, that we can't express it in the way that we might choose. And like the disciples locked into that upper room fearful about what might happen to them. Many of us are feeling fearful. Or if not fearful, there's certainly a great sense of uncertainty. How long is this going to go on for? How long can I cope like this for? And maybe this is a moment where we need the peace of God. Because yes, we can't be physically close to others apart from those that we share a home with, but we can be close to God. This is a moment where he can breathe his peace into us. So in a minute, when it comes to the end of this video, turn away from the computer, put the phone down, take several long, deep breaths, and as you do, ask God to breathe his peace into you. And then receive it. Allow it to fill up your life. We can't be together in the way that we want to be together, but God can still draw close to us. He can still breathe his peace into us. Peace be with you.